Hey, what's up, y'all? Welcome to the number one podcast for Black parents. It is the Black People Parenting Podcast. Of course, you know me. It's Dion, family engagement educator and host of the podcast, host of Black People Parenting, and just welcoming everyone here for this latest and greatest episode. We've been talking about finances for the entire season, for this season of Black People Parenting, and I think it's important if we talk about finances, we got to talk about jobs, we got to talk about employment. So I brought somebody on with us who is the expert extraordinaire in all things jobs, in all things employment. Uh, I know her as something else. Today, she's going by the Recruiter Cousin. I love that moniker. I love that name. I don't know how she wants me to refer to her today, but I'm just going to refer to her as.
You can call me whatever you want because you knew me before Recruiter Cousin.
That's what I tell people too. Like people tell me, like, I don't know if we should call you Showtime. Whatever you met me as is what you can call me. I tell people that all the time. So I get it. Chenae Erkerd is here. She goes by the name of at Recruiter Cousin on all social platforms. And she has been doing the Lord's work and helping people get jobs and helping people kind of figure out their path and what they need to do to get employed and to be more employable. And I think it's important for her to come on the show and kind of talk about some of those things. So welcome to the show, ma'am. Good to see you again.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. It's funny because I called you Dion to my husband and completely forgot that you were Showtime. So
He was
I'm
like,
like,
"Who is
yeah,
that?"
well, Dion.
Right. So yeah, I have pivoted out of Showtime for the most part. Like me, you were saying, like I still will do some things as Showtime.
Yeah.
I think we're going to launch a music podcast pretty soon. Well,
Mhm.
where I might just keep the Showtime name going, but since I'm not in radio, like I figured, with everything else I'm doing, like I might as well just go ahead and go full speed with my government name and go with the
Yeah.
name of go with the name my mama gave me. You feel me?
I love it.
So let's talk about you a little bit. Like I want to talk about first of all your journey because tell us your story. Like tell us what you do now and what you were doing previous to what you're doing now.
Yeah, so what I'm doing now is I'm a recruiter in big tech. So originally I wanted to be an attorney, and then that didn't happen because I didn't pass the bar, which was really a blessing in disguise because I don't think I would have been good at it. I just think that I wanted to be an attorney, but I don't think I would have been a good one. And part of that is because some of the things that even my friends tell me now, I'd have been like, I ain't dealing with that. Nope. So I don't think I would have been a good one. So I pivoted out of legal into HR. Originally, so before I got into HR, it was literally in that middle time where I was a secretary in Duke's Law School with a law degree, and so I had to very much humble myself because it was a temp job. I was still trying to find my way, but I had to humble myself in the journey because I kept saying like, "You're not here for no reason." And so you need a job. So Chenae, you got to humble yourself. And so my second assignment after that first temp assignment was a compliance officer with Duke Talent Identification Program, which is Duke TIP. And that's where I met my mentor. And so my mentor asked me if I wanted to learn how to be a recruiter. And I was like, yeah, sure. Like I genuinely don't have nothing else to do. So sure. So in the midst of all of that, I was doing spoken word and I was driving Lyft and I was doing all these things. So when Dion says that he knows me before Recruiter Cousin, he knew me as CL Either artist. And I'm still CL Either artist when I'm doing spoken word. Recruiter Cousin is what I love to tackle spoken word, motivational speaking, and then my actual job. So I went from that to being a recruiter, to being taken under her wing, and she really taught me about the candidate experience and why it's important to understand the candidate experience because all of us at some point was a candidate, is a candidate, or will be a candidate. And so to understand that, you have to understand the urgency of a candidate. So she really kind of took me under her wing and taught me all of that. I then pivoted from her, which was in higher education at Duke, to the healthcare side as a full-time recruiter for about 2 years. And so I went from legal to pivoting into higher education, pivoted into healthcare, and then now ultimately I'm currently in big tech. So I recruit for probably the biggest tech company, if not the grandfather of all tech companies. In addition to that, I do a lot of my own work. So I do a lot of recruiting in a kind of recruiting motivational speaking at the same time. So I only recruit for one company, but I do a lot of motivational speaking and trying to get people to understand how to go throughout the job search process, how to make it easier on yourself. And then some things that recruiters know that candidates wouldn't know unless you were a recruiter.
Hmm. Now, you talk a lot about pivoting, and that's something that a lot of us, including myself, had to do because of COVID, right?
Yeah.
How hard was it for you to make that pivot, and what are some steps that people can take if they are in the job market and they are thinking about needing to pivot?
Yeah. So just a formal part of the question, what the steps that I had to take was I had to humble myself, which was very hard to do because I had to understand that I'm very worthy of being in a certain industry or in a certain position. But I had to understand that in order to do that, I may have had to take a few steps back in terms of pay to understand where I wanted to go later. And so that was something that I had to overcome, which was really difficult. So going in the midst of in between going from legal contracting into higher education at Duke, I, going from legal into higher education at Duke, I was a legal contractor in the middle. And being a legal contractor, I was making like $23 an hour. And those hours, I could very well, depending on the project, I could do 40 hours a week. I could do overtime if I wanted to. So, and then the hours were flexible. So it was kind of easy money, so to speak. And then I went to having to pivot into Duke on the higher education space, which was hard because I took like an $8 pay cut.
Mm.
So I had to really understand in order for me to be set up for something, I had to take a few steps back and I had to be okay with that. I think what we run into sometimes as candidates is we're so used to making a certain amount of money that we're not able to take that step back or take that pay cut, which is understandable because there's a certain lifestyle that you become accustomed to. And then, cost of living is crazy. So I completely understand that some people are not in the position to take a pay cut like I was. Like I had a supportive husband. So he was okay with me taking a pay cut to then be pushed forward later. But I do think that at times you may have to take a little bit of a pay cut based on the competitiveness of the industry, based on just kind of the situation that you may be in, to then understand that you'll be pushed forward later.
Mhm.
That's not always true in all cases. For me, it was. Then you have times where you may not be able to take a pay cut, and you can absolutely just enter a boot camp, go back to school, and be able to then transfer your hard skills from going to school and being in another industry that way to go into a pivoting industry. So it's a lot of things that you can do. But I think one of the hardest things was having to take that pay cut
Mhm.
and having to understand that in order for me to be successful, I had to have at the time in the moment, I had to have a law degree making $15 an hour. That was really hard to like grasp and to really understand.
Mhm.
So, but I mean, it worked out later. So, I mean, that was just my story, but I would just say that you have to be able to humble yourself in the best way possible, no matter the circumstance.
Mhm. Mhm. Do you think that the job market has changed in recent years, and how has that kind of like affected the role that recruiters play in the search for jobs?
Yeah, that's a good question. So I'll answer the recruiter part first. So what's hard about being a recruiter is the recruiter reputation is that recruiters don't follow through, we don't communicate, we ghost candidates, all kind of recruiters are hard to get in contact with, all kind of stuff. I do so much work outside of my 9 to 5 because I try to dismantle that stereotype that all we do is we recruit for the company and we don't really care about the candidate. And that's not true in all cases and with all recruiters. So I would say that in getting in contact with a recruiter, you have to be able to be prepared when you're talking to a recruiter so that then they can help you navigate the job search process. When it comes to the job market, at this point, and I'll speak for tech and then I'll speak for other industries. With tech specifically, within the last almost 3 weeks now, I think we're close to like 70,000 to 100,000 people who've been laid off from all major tech companies.
Right.
So the people who were already laid off or unemployed or what have you, or even employed but just trying to get out of their current jobs, in that space, I think what's been difficult is you are already competing with the people who were laid off with you. Now you're competing with people 70 to 100,000 plus people in addition to the people who you were competing with before. And so what can be difficult is when you have companies who want to pull those people who were laid off from competitive companies because they have the certain skill set that a hiring manager is looking for. At that point, the people who were laid off well before the people who are in big tech or healthcare or whoever, they feel pushed to the back because hiring managers or specific companies are looking for specific skill sets that the people who were recently laid off may have versus the people who have been laid off for a long time.
Mm-hmm.
The job market it's been really competitive in the numbers, and then add the fact that it's only a certain, and I say only because within a certain type of position, it's only a certain amount of positions that may be available for thousands of people who need jobs. You then have other positions like tech sales, for example, that people overlook that have thousands of jobs open. So I just think that the job market is going to depend on what you want to do and understand what you want to do and then go after that. I have a lot of people who reach out to me in my DMs, whether it's Instagram, LinkedIn, Facebook, everywhere. And they tell me, well, Chenae, I want to get into tech. And the first question I ask is, what do you want to do? And they say, well, I don't know. And then I say, come back to me when you figure it out. Because at that point, you have to tell me, okay, what exactly do you want to do in this industry? So then I can maybe help guide you to the right person or kind of the right processes that you can actually follow in order to get you there. So the job market is competitive in and of itself, but I think sometimes without having direction, the candidate can be even more lost, especially with the job market being so competitive now.
So how do you determine who's the best candidate for a specific company? Like what is there a certain criteria that you go by?
So yeah, so if I'm recruiting for a specific position with the company I work for, then I have to go off of the job description, and that's every recruiter. We
Mm.
always have to go off of the job description, and at the very bottom of the job description, you have the minimum qualifications. So where you see education and experience, all of that is the minimum qualifications, and then right in the middle of that, somewhere in there, you'll have language that'll say preferred or something like that. That means that you don't have to meet all of those preferred qualifications, but you do have to meet all of the minimum qualifications that the hiring manager set out. So that's what we follow for compliance reasons and especially to be in line with the law.
Mm. So do you? So let me ask you this. This is a question I always thought about when I was in the hunt for a job. Other
Mhm.
duties as a sign that always would get me right. They throw that down. They quick to throw out other duties as a sign. What exactly does that mean? And like, if they ask me to do something, I get the job, and they ask me to do something. It, can anything fall under other duties as a sign?
Yep. That's how so when people complain about, well, this wasn't in my job description, actually it is.
Mm.
And that bullet that at the very bottom, that's normally the last bullet.
Last
That
one.
bottom
That's how they
bullet
get you.
says other duties as assigned.
Mm, mm,
That is
mm.
exactly what that means. So that means you need to stretch to another team to help out another teammate. If that means you have to go move some boxes, if
Mm.
that means you may have to volunteer somewhere, if
Clean
that
the
so
toilets.
it can literally be anything. Granted, it's definitely within the bounds that make sense. But there are times when, like, I've complained before about different jobs that I've
Mhm.
worked at, and my mentor will say, "Well, Chenae, based on this job description, like it does say other duties as assigned,"
Right.
and she literally was like, "That's how they get you. If they say this is another duty that you need to do that relates to your job, even if you don't think it does, they feel like it does. So you have to follow that. If you don't like it, of course you're welcome to leave, which is easier said than done. But Yeah, that's exactly how they get you.
That's how
Absolutely.
they get you. Go make me a bacon double cheeseburger pronto. I mean, you got to go do it. It's ludicrous out here, man. So let me ask you this: what are some mistakes that you see from candidates when they are in the process of looking for a job? What are some mistakes that they make?
So the number one mistake that they make is coming to recruiters unprepared.
Hmm.
100%. When you so if you come into my DM, and I think one of the most common annoying things that we get is when someone comes into our DM, they attach their resume without us asking for it. They attach their resume and they say, okay, what jobs do you have for me?
Mm.
And I immediately go, well, did you look on the website for opportunities? If the answer is no, I will ignore you, because that let me know that you don't want to do the work. You don't want to do the research. You want me to do it. And
Hmm.
you think it's because I have easy access to certain information because I am an employee of the company, I'm supposed to just give you whatever position may be coming down the pipeline, which I cannot do. Or I need to point you in the direction of a specific position based on your skill set on your listed on your resume. What people don't understand is that a recruiter's job is to recruit for specific positions that are assigned to them in a specific business of that company. So I always tell people, think of recruitment as a really big room. So then think of a recruiter as having a small corner in that big room. They have access to the small corner, but all of the other information is spilled by other recruiters in all corners of the room, which means that we may overlap to help one another, but we don't have the responsibility of pushing a skill set or a resume to a hiring manager that doesn't belong to us. So I think one of the hardest things to deal with as a recruiter is when people, like, for example, they'll send me a position and they'll say, so I applied to this position. Can you send me to the hiring manager? Without asking me, does the position belong to me? Now, I've had people who say, I applied to this role, not sure if it belongs to you, but if it doesn't, do you mind telling the recruiter who it's assigned to about me? I can do that. Now, that's fine. But I think for people who expect us to do the work for them, it can be frustrating, and it can tire us out to a point where when we reach the people who are prepared, we'll feel like answering no more questions,
Right.
because at that point we've been so emptied and just so kind of like bogged down with all of the ill-prepared questions that it becomes taxing by the time you get to the people who are actually prepared, which really sucks, but
Hmm.
that sometimes is how it is.
But so, what role does networking play in the work that you do, and what are some tips? Like, is networking still important? Like, rubbing
Yeah,
elbows. So,
absolutely.
okay. So, what are some tips that you can give for those who may not know how to network or may not know how to connect with folks?
Yeah, so that goes to my job seeker templates. So I wrote those templates specifically for that. So I wrote templates based on I wrote literally from the very beginning stage of you networking or trying to apply to jobs to by the time you accept an offer. I wrote a DM template for you to actually understand how to network with a recruiter or hiring manager, and I wrote it in a way where you can word it so the person can understand. I, as a candidate, respect your time. I apologize if this is coming in a random way or whatever, but I want you to know I respect your time. I applied to this role. I applied to this role with this company. Not sure if this applies to you or if it's assigned to you. If it's not, do you mind sending my LinkedIn to the person it's assigned to? I wrote that specifically and worded it that way because people will attach their resumes to us in our DMs without our permission. The reason why it's not always a bad thing, but the reason why your resume may not leave our DMs is because your resume has personal identifiable information in it that if it gets into the wrong hands, then the person who took it and the company they work for is liable for your information getting into the wrong hands.
Hmm.
So it's easier if you say something like, I'm not sure if I'm able to attach my resume, but am I able to give you my LinkedIn profile link so that you can send my link to the person who this position is assigned to? Your LinkedIn profile is public, so anybody can look at that. So it's easier to have your LinkedIn updated, have that act as your floating resume, and then that way we can share LinkedIn's from one recruiter or hiring manager to the next.
Mm.
The reason why that's important is because hiring managers look at your LinkedIn before we even get to it. Sometimes they actually send us your LinkedIn and be like, can you reach out to this candidate? And we had no idea who the candidate was or how they even came about. So because hiring managers are looking at your LinkedIn profile so much, I always stress for people to keep their LinkedIn's updated. The next template that I have is a recruiter screening template. So people have asked me, how do you prepare for a recruiter screen, and how is that different from actually actually preparing for an actual interview?
Mhm.
So I wrote a recruiter screening template for people to understand these are some of the things that we ask. This is some of the things that you may want to think about preparing for and all of that. The next thing I did was I wrote a preparing for the interview template. So now once you get the interview, once you've networked and you've sent the DM and y'all can have a conversation, and then you hit the recruiter screen and the recruiter has referred you. Now, if the hiring manager is interested in interviewing you, then let's go ahead and prepare you for the interview. And then this is what I wrote for in preparation of the interview and how you prepare for the interview. Once you get to the interview, there at the very end of an interview, there is a chance for you to then interview the company or the
Mhm.
interviewers. And that chance comes at the very end when they ask, do you have any questions for
Right.
us? That is your chance to become the interviewer. So I have a list of about 10 questions that you can ask an interviewer to catch the interviewer off guard, to keep them intrigued, and to get them to understand that you are not a pushover type of candidate. You are a serious candidate. And I've learned the hard way that depending on the kind of questions that you ask, the interviewers can look at you as a pushover or a strong candidate. So I wrote questions so that you can look like a strong candidate and not a pushover. From there, if you ask those questions, the next template I have is, okay, now I've gotten through the interview. Here is my post interview email follow up template that you can use this template to send an email to the interviewing team if you haven't heard anything. And so I've had people use the DM template and gotten offers. I think the fastest offer I got from someone using my DM template was 3 days. So
Mm.
she used the DM template, she had a job by day 3. The next one, she used my DM template and got hired by day 12. The next one was day 14. I was like, oh, they work, cool. So then after that, after you get past the interview, the post interview follow up email, if you haven't heard anything, the next template I have is, we've now reached the salary negotiations. Or if you have not gotten to salary negotiations and they decided to go somewhere else, then it's okay to ask for feedback or anything like that, depending on if they can give it to you. If you get to the salary negotiations, I have a list of questions that you can ask to understand your package, because I came into big tech not really understanding the difference between base salary and total comp. So I wrote that out so candidates can understand what they're getting into. And then the next template I had is, I have like a template specifically for tech sales, for people who want to go into tech sales. I have a cover letter template. I have a resume template. So about 16 templates that I created for people to learn how to network and then navigate through their job search process a little easier.
So where can these templates be found? And are they
Yeah,
available for
so
purchase?
they are available for purchase. So my templates are on my DM on my on my LinkedIn. So if you go to my LinkedIn page, right under where it says Durham, North Carolina at the top, it says RC Job Seeker Templates. You hit that link and hit that hyperlink, and you go to the Job Seeker template page where you have all of the templates that I created. If you go on my Instagram and you go to my direct me in my bio, hit the direct me, and then you can go to the direct me page, and it has all of my templates there as well. Or you can DM me and I can see the link too.
so there
It's on Gumroad under Recruiter Cousin.
so there was this one time when young Glad Dad Dion, probably before I was Glad Dad Dion, went in for a job interview, right? This is just a quick
Mhm.
story time. So the people called me and they said, "Can you come in for an interview today?" And I was like, "All right, bet." It's a call center job. Back then call centers were big business, right? I was like, "All right,
Mhm.
bet." So I knew that the interview wasn't going to go right when I was sitting in the lobby waiting for the interview, and I realized I had on mixed match socks. That was the first thing that I realized I did wrong. And I'm saying this because I don't want anybody to follow in these footsteps. The second thing that I did wrong, I realized when I was in the interviewer asked me a question. I don't remember what the question was. All I remember is that when he asked me the question, my reply was, "I don't know."
Mhm.
I didn't have an answer for him. like I did all of the
Mhm.
shucking and jiving that I could do, and it got to that final
Mhm.
point, and he was like, "Well, give me a time when you X Y Z," and I said, "I don't know." Needless to
Mhm.
say, I didn't get the job. So
Mhm.
please, people, when you go into an interview, never use the answer, "I don't
I
know."
don't know.
You have to,
Never say that.
if you have to lie, if you have
If you gotta
to,
make it up on the spot, you gotta make it up.
never say I don't know. I just had to get that out. So you talk about LinkedIn a lot, right? And a lot of us really
Mhm.
aren't really familiar with how useful LinkedIn can be. Like we're kind of sleeping on
Mhm.
LinkedIn, but it's like LinkedIn is a monster. So can you kind of
Yeah.
explain the benefits? Because I know for me it's like, oh, it's another social network, oh, it's another thing. I don't
Yeah.
really know how to use, I don't really know how to navigate, I post stuff and nobody even sees it. Can you talk about
Yeah.
like the benefits of LinkedIn in the business world and how we can how we can best leverage that to help us out in our job searches?
Yeah, of course. So first, I love LinkedIn because that's actually how I got my job. So that's actually how I got a tech. I wasn't actively looking for a job, and I had my jobs tab notifications on, and it sent me a recruiter job for the company I currently work for, and I then hit the link and I just followed the link into from my email to LinkedIn to the website. I applied. Here I am, literally. I know it's not that easy for a lot of people, but it was that easy for me.
Mm,
And it wasn't that easy for a long time. So I was happy it was that easy for me. LinkedIn helped a lot of people get jobs. So if you go on someone's LinkedIn profile, like for mine, for example, you type in hashtag recruiter cousin, you'll get me. If you type in Chenae Erkerd, you'll get me. If you go to where my current experience is, it'll be like a LinkedIn icon that'll say LinkedIn helped me get this job because I actually use LinkedIn to go to the website to then apply to that specific role. So what I love also about LinkedIn that is very different from like a Facebook or an Instagram or even a TikTok is LinkedIn, for example. So Dion, if you and I are connected on LinkedIn and you posted something but you weren't getting traction on that post, if I hit like, love, or react to it in any kind of way, or if I comment, my entire almost 80,000 person network would see that I commented on your thing and it brings light to your post. So your post would
mm,
then show up on
for
my
those,
network, on
right?
everybody on my network post will see it. So
Hmm.
it helps get your impressions up of, and the impressions just means that every single time your post showed up on somebody's like profile or timeline or something like that,
Hmm.
it helps kind of navigate that space.
Hmm.
And then what LinkedIn has is they have social Saturdays and job seeker Sundays. So social Saturdays is when you put up a post and you say open to connect or open to network. My name is Chenae Erkerd. I'm a recruiter with this company. I'm looking for a job with this company or this company, or I'm looking to pivot into this type of role. I'm open to connect or I'm open to work. And you hashtag those things. So when people see, and then you hashtag Social Saturday, when people see it, they'll comment under it and they say, hey, my name is Dion. I'm looking to pivot out of this into this. And then hopefully a recruiter or a hiring manager will see your post, or they may know someone who is trying to hire or trying to network with someone who's looking for that particular job. So
Hmm.
I love it because it brings a community of people together and it helps you everybody helps you find a position. What we also do on LinkedIn is I recently partnered with, originally it was like 15 other people. Once all of the layoffs happened in like a matter of a week, I just my spirit was just like, shouldn't they do something for the community? So me and 15 other people band together and we decided to do free resume review for 5 people. So then resume review can run you like two, three, $400.
Hmm.
So we decided to take 5 people and do free resume review. But this wasn't just any type of person. It had the people on this list. They were recruiters, they were career coaches, and they were resume writers that I actually trusted. So my original 15 people went from 15 people to 93 people.
Mm.
From everybody just reaching out saying, I want to volunteer, I want to give back. So we had hundreds of people's resumes reviewed for free. So the community just helps each other, and
Hmm.
that's what I love.
Hmm. Now you talked about resumes. Now I'm from the school back in the day where they would tell you that your resume should only be one page, right? I don't know if you remember those times. Like your
Mhm.
resume was only supposed to be one page. Is
Yeah.
that still a thing? Because now, as someone who has worked in the job market for almost 30 years at this point, it's impossible
Mhm.
to have a one-page resume. So
Mhm.
talk to me about like the process of creating a standout resume and a standout cover letter.
Yeah. So first, I think it's weird when people say that a resume should be one page when you have 30 years of experience,
Right.
like, or when you have 10 years of experience.
Right.
I think that's weird. So when, like, I've had countless people come to me and say, "Well, I was told that your resume should be one page," and I always say, "Well, who told you that?
Mm-hmm.
Was it an HR person or was it a recruiter?" Granted, both are in HR, but was it someone in some way were they in HR? If the answer is no, then I highly doubt you should probably listen to them.
It was my
Now, if
FBLA teacher in high school is actually who it
you
was.
know, if you are a student just graduating from school, understand that your resume is probably only going to be one page.
Mm-hmm.
But if you're someone who has extensive experience and you're trying to get to where you're supposed to go, then your resume is going to be a good 2 pages, sometimes even bleeding on the third page for real. So it kind of depends. I think it depends on the recruiter. Honestly, and if I'm keeping it a buck, my resume is long as crap.
Mm-hmm.
And I learned to cut my resume down, but my long resume got me my job. My
Mm-hmm.
long resume also got me my job in my previous role. So it was impossible for me to put all of my skill sets in one page. That was
Mm-hmm.
weird. When it comes to formulating your resume or cover letter, I personally like my how my resume is set out and how my mentor told me to set mine out, which is now I'm kind of programmed to look at resumes this way. I like it where you have either career objective or professional summary at the top. You do not have to have both. You either going to have a professional summary or a career objective. From there, you have your skill set. So I like to see the skill set at the top because I want to know what you are good at first. That's the first thing I want to know. And
Mm-hmm.
that skill set should not be a bunch of soft skills. Soft skills being leadership, communication,
Mm-hmm.
collaboration,
Mm-hmm.
teamwork. Like everybody good at that.
Right.
You need hard skills that is niche to you. So I would put that skill section at the top. The next section should be your experience section. Now, there's no point of having these skills listed in your skill section if you're not going to put those skills in your job responsibilities and how you use them. So I always tell people to put the skills that they have listed, apply it in your job section or your work experience. And then from there, it probably is going to be the next thing is probably going to be your education. I'm a recruiter who doesn't really care where the education is because if the job is requiring an educational type of level, I'll find the education. That's not an issue. Granted, you can put it at the top or the bottom. Doesn't really matter to me. But my education is right after my work experience. From there, I have my certifications. From there, I have my volunteer experience or community service. And the reason why I had it this way is because volunteer community service, I put in there that I was an event planner. As a recruiter, you have to plan events all the time. And so I wanted the person who was recruiting me and the hiring manager who was deciding to understand that I am a recruiter. I'm going to be a good recruiter because I know how to event plan. I also know how to talk to people, customer service, and things of that nature. So that's how I set up my resume. My cover letter is normally kind of an introduction to yourself and an extension of your resume where you're able to explain exactly what you do in your jobs where your resume doesn't give you room to. So you pretty much introduce yourself, your level of education or your years of experience. And then for me, at the last two sentences of my cover letter has something to the effect of pivoting language. So it was although I have a law degree, I've decided not to take the bar and practice law. Instead, I decided to go into a field of HR because this, and this.
Mm-hmm.
And then I was able to explain from there. It kind of segued me into explaining my temp experience and becoming a recruiter, and then my second experience in being a full-time recruiter, and then saying that I'm the best fit for the role. So just a letter of explaining why you're the best fit and explaining your experiences around why.
Mm-hmm. Now, I have probably been lying about being proficient in Excel on my resumes for the last 25 years or so. Where
I
exactly
think
does
we
that go?
all.
Where does that go? Just tell me, where do we put that? Does that still need to go on the resume, or can we get rid of that? Because
We can put Microsoft. We can put Microsoft Office Suite. Like
Office Suite.
everybody will say something like, "Oh, Microsoft Word, Microsoft Excel, Microsoft PowerPoint, Microsoft Teams." Like you can just put
Mhm.
Microsoft Office Suite,
Okay,
and people pretty much know what that is.
right, but they don't know that I'm lying, right?
Probably not,
Right, they
unless
don't.
unless they tell you that they need you to do a sample in the
Oh
interview
nah,
and you don't know what you're doing.
nah,
Then
nah. I'm dead. I'm gonna be sweating like the Michael Jordan meme. Nah, crying face and everything. I'm done. So let me ask you this: how do you see the job market kind of evolving over the next 5 to 10 years? Because we're seeing a lot of, and you work in big tech, so I think you can really speak to this.
Mhm,
We're seeing a lot of AI being implemented. We're seeing a
mhm,
lot of robotics being implemented into the work that we're doing now. Like, if there's certain restaurants where they don't have servers, they have robots, and they have
mhm,
robots as cashiers, or there's some hotels
mhm.
that have like AI as the first person that you see, person in
Yeah.
quotation marks, when you walk to the counter. How is it changing, and is technology, is big tech kind of taking over the job market?
I think that there are going to be some changes to a point where people's jobs may be phased out because they may feel like the AI tools that they're creating can replace a person.
Hmm.
I mean, it's the same thing as like if you saw Hidden Figures, and when Dorothy Vaughan was learning how to use the IBM machine because the IBM was going to push numbers faster than their human computers. In order for them to actually keep their jobs, they had to learn how to use the IBM machine and learn how to operate it. So I think that if we take our learning and professional development a little further in understanding how AI works and how we can work with it or get ahead of it, I think certain people's jobs will be saved. But I do think that at a certain point, if we don't continue to develop ourselves and stay up to speed with certain nuances of things and upgrades and updates of certain things, that I do think that we'll be behind the curve of what we can possibly achieve in the end. So I do think that it's important for us to learn more skills now. Which is why people are like a lot of people are going from one industry into tech, specifically tech sales. And part of that is because in order to get the company interested in a certain tech company, you have to have the salespeople to show the demos of the products that the tech company has. And so I commend those people who want to learn more about the product so that they can sell it. Because if you're coming out of, say, for instance, retail, and you've been a salesperson for a number of years, it's interesting and very much doable for you to go into tech sales because it's your sales on the technical side.
Hmm.
So
Hmm.
those are people who are trying to stay abreast of everything that's happening, all the changes that are being made, instead of staying stagnant and hoping that their jobs are saved. So I think that we have to keep learning about what these tools are and what they mean. We also have to learn about them, how to operate them, whether we become engineers or whether we become product owners or data scientists or things like that. I think we have to be a little bit more ahead and be a little bit more open to learning a little more.
Hmm.
And I think technology is going to push us out of our comfort zone.
Hmm. Hmm. That's good. That's really good. So for the person who is in a job right now, they feel stuck, right? They've been in a job for, let's say, 7 to 10 years. They might be doing well, but it's not what they want to be doing, or they want
Mhm,
to do something else. They don't know what they want to do. What
mhm.
words of wisdom would you have for them? Because again, I'm a big proponent of like following your dreams and doing what it is that your heart wants you to do. Right? I don't think anybody should be working in a job where they feel stuck, or they feel unhappy, or they feel unfulfilled. Right? What words would you have for someone who was thinking about making a change in their career field, but they don't necessarily know where to go, or they don't know how to get to a certain destination?
Yeah, so there are a few free things that you can do. So LinkedIn Learning has a bunch of just free courses that you can actually just peruse a little bit to understand if it's something that you may be interested in, and for free, so you don't have to pay for anything. What I also do is I also tell people to follow influencers, follow people who, or kind of research people who may be in the field that you may be thinking about going into, and start following their journey and learning from them. For example, I post a lot of tips and tricks on my LinkedIn, on my Facebook, on my Instagram, because I just want to make it a little bit easier for people. So people follow me just from out of one, sometimes out of curiosity, but then two, out of free advice, so that it can make their job search a little easier. So I just always, that's something you can do. You can follow people for free. You can take free online courses via LinkedIn, because they do have a lot of free online courses. I would not say to just get a bunch of certifications,
Hmm.
because certifications without guidance, it's just paper.
Mm-hmm.
So I would very much have guidance first before you get certified in something. I would also seek out some career coaches. So there are a bunch of career coaches that you can seek out that will help kind of with the transition to understand what you want to do. I also have a template called seasoned candidates. And my seasoned candidates template is for people who may be, for example, maybe in their 40s, 50s, or even 60s. And with 40s, 50s, 60s, there's a good chance that you may feel like you're going to be discriminated against because of your age. So I wrote that specifically. Like, I asked my mom, I said, Mom, if you weren't a CNA, what would you want to do? She said, I wouldn't even know where to start.
Hmm.
If I decided I didn't want to be a CNA anymore, my mom is closer to 60. I said, well, what would you want to do? She said, I wouldn't know where to start. I wouldn't even know who to contact, what direction to go in. So I wrote that template based off of her response.
Facts.
So I would absolutely seek out some career coaches. I would definitely seek out. I wouldn't seek out recruiters first. I would do the career coaches first, because career coaches are going to kind of baby step you a little bit, where recruiters at times can either be so focused on their in-house positions, or they can be so focused on getting the hire that they're not paying attention to your journey.
Mm-hmm.
So I would very much seek out a career coach for the journey aspect, and for you to start understanding what you need to do. And then I would do your own research, just trying to understand what you want to do, what makes you happy, and then make that a thing. So what makes me happy is being a motivational speaker. And being a motivational speaker, I get to do spoken word, and I get to offer people jobs. So it starts with that, and then putting that into work.
Mm-hmm. 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 I like it. I like it. I like it a lot. Well, thank you, ma'am. This has been a very enlightening conversation. The next time that I
You're
go out
welcome.
and have to apply for a job, I will know that instead of putting proficient in Excel, I can lie and say just proficient in the whole Microsoft suite. I'm just good at all of it. Like, just give it give it all to me. Like, just
Right.
Word,
They won't know unless you get caught.
Teams, Access. There used to be one called Access or something back in the day. I'm good at
Uh-huh.
all. Just give it all to me. So Chenae, recruiter cousin, tell the people how they can connect with you. Tell them how they can get those templates that you talked about. I think this is a really dope
Yeah.
conversation. I really want to be sure that people just connect, because I think you're doing really dope work.
Thank you. So you can find me on Instagram at Recruiter Cousin. The at is right under me. So recruiter and then cousin, just all one word. You can also find me on LinkedIn. You can hashtag Recruiter Cousin and hit the hashtag, and you'll find my post, and you can connect or follow me there. Or you can type in Chenae Erkerd, Chenae. Last name is Erkerd, Erkerd, and I'm literally the only one in the world whose name is that. So you'll get me. And then you can also connect with me on TikTok. I'm at Recruiter Cousin on TikTok as well, and I post a lot of my testimonials from people who've used my templates. I literally had, like, sometimes I lose count, but from now I have like 7 more testimonials that I need to share that I haven't shared yet. But I get a good amount of testimonials per week for people who have used my templates, and they've gotten them either offers or interviews or recognition from companies that wouldn't otherwise have paid them any mind.
Mm.
So my templates, you can go to Gumroad, so Gum and then Road, and you can find Recruiter Cousin, and my templates will be there. Or you can go to my direct me on my Instagram bio, hit direct me, and my templates are there. You can go to LinkedIn under where it says Durham, North Carolina, RC Job Seeker Templates. Hit that hyperlink, and my templates are there. And then I also have a calendar that if you DM me, or you can hit my direct me, and my calendar is there as well.
Okay. And I'll be sure to put all of those links in the podcast description on YouTube and on all the platforms. So thank you, Recruiter Cousin. I appreciate it. I've
Of
always been a
course.
big supporter of yours from years and years ago. And I just love the
Yeah.
work that you do. And you always just continue to amaze me and all of the great and dope things that you are involved in. So thank you. Give your husband my best wishes on not his team not making it to the Super Bowl.
Not his team, okay? Not his team. See the Super Bowl logo right over here. Oh, right over here.
Thank you, ma'am. I appreciate it. I'll holler at you. And don't forget, like I always say, if you listen to the podcast, if you're watching the podcast, take care of your kids, take care of each other, but most importantly, take care of yourselves. Like, share, subscribe, download it, do all the things you got to do on all the platforms, and we'll see you in the next episode. Black People Parenting. Peace.